Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story Podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, it's Ivy Slater, and welcome to today's episode of Her Success Story. Today is the conclusion of the Women in Finance Past, Present, and Future series that we have been having for the last few weeks, and we are concluding it with an amazing guest. Hilary Hendershott has been in finance for over 21 years. She's experienced helping women and couples preserve and grow their wealth while eliminating financial stress once and for all. She teaches her the listeners on the link between healthy relationship with money and a healthy life. Hilary has been an expert on this, is a natural, been featured in the Wall Street Journal, in a variety of other podcasts, and I can go on and on, but more than anything, Hilary is a wife, she's a mom, she's a woman who has experienced financial wellness on both sides of the equation, the good and the bad, which truly endears her to my heart as a real woman and a woman who has an enormous amount of knowledge. So Hilary, thanks for taking the time and coming to us and joining us today on Her Success Story.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here with you.
So sure, I always say, let's in kicking this off, let's look at how did you get into finance? Why finance? Why you? Why was this the right match?
Well, I got my undergraduate degree is in economics, but when I graduated from college, I wanted a sexy job. I remember very specifically, I wanted to work with Southwest Airlines. For some reason, I thought that was sexy.
Company culture-wise, they have an amazing, and for many years, they were a thought leader in company culture.
I think they had a huge campus recruiting program that I got tainted by, and the brand was very present for me as an employer. It was like, those people are having fun at work. I ended up going the management consulting route, and essentially an Arthur Andersen spinoff stuck me in a back room with a bunch of spreadsheets. I got really good at Excel, very good. And after 9 months of that, I said, for this, I did not go to college. So I'm gonna go do something different. I ended up in a startup. That was 1999. You probably remember what happened in Silicon Valley in 1999. That startup blew through.
The tech implosion.
The tech wreck, we affectionately refer to it. So my company blew through $20 million, and I found myself with a laptop and no paycheck. I walked away from that job with a laptop in lieu of my last paycheck. And I said to my dad, I don't know what to do. I tried management consulting. I tried recruiting. I'm not sure what's happening. He basically said, well, he didn't say it in these words, but he wanted a dynasty. He was building this financial planning firm, and he very much wanted to have his family come in underneath him. And I think it was a very emotional want for him. And so I came on board, and I think in retrospect, I thought, he literally said, you're the business continuation plan, but there was no business continuation happening, right? My dad wasn't going anywhere. So functionally what I was doing was working for my daddy.
So there was a business continuation plan eventually, but certainly not now.
Certainly not now. And he's still working full time. So not 20 years later.
Okay. I've heard this story somewhere before, but we will get there another day or at least another moment. Okay, so you ended up working for Dad, and then how did that look compared to your previous two experiences?
Yeah. So, and I should say his financial planning firm is 50% owned by his wife. Peggy became my stepmother when I was 16 or 17 years old. So she's, I say I have four parents. I've got step parents for many decades at this point. So I was really working for my dad and his wife. And I did the CFP coursework. So I became a certified financial planner. I was working with clients. That part was very interesting. And the truth is, it was a staid office job. I didn't know how to bring in prospective financial planning clients. I looked around me, and all I saw, my competitors were old white men. And, not that there's anything wrong with being an old white man, but I didn't relate. I couldn't say anything to myself except why would someone work with me when they can work with that guy who he's got salt and pepper in his hair, and here I am 27 years old, you know? So I had a lot of inferiority complex and there was a huge chasm for me between how am I going to get from being, you know, essentially someone who, I mean, I was doing math. I was doing financial planning for people, but I wasn't anywhere mentally or psychologically or wisdom wise where I could run a business. So it was a bit of a dead end for me, and I couldn't get my dad to put me on any kind of plan. He used to say things like, well, we're going to put on a seminar and you're responsible for putting 50 millionaires in seats. That was his world, right? The Rolodex with the index cards. He came from life insurance sales, and we were doing.
Oh, that was my world early on. I mean, I had a Rolodex and I had an index card with 12 months of the year, and I would have conversation. And as the conversations got thicker and thicker and thicker instead of the CRM, you stapled the index cards together. And if I spoke to you in May or June, then we knew we were circling back, and I'd have a note on what you were doing for your summer holiday, and that I was going to touch base with you, whether it be August or September 1, and it would go into that slot. That was sales back in the day.
The card catalog. Yeah. Index card box with the dividers. And so that was, you know, in my dad's world, that was how you start selling. That even though we were doing fiduciary fee only, so conflict-free financial advice, we didn't have any products to sell. That was his world, right? And so to him, how you get started is you put 50 butts in seats. And it was like, I'm 27 years old, Dad. How am I going to how many millionaires do you have to find, first of all, to put 50 of them in a room? Like 500. And how would I find those people, right?
And at 27, who was your relationships? How many millionaires did you go to college with?
Yeah, none.
Shockingly, right? How many did you go up on the street? How many did you go to high school with? You might, if somebody was really smart and really ingenious in tech, might have hit on one. Maybe.
One. Yeah. Yeah. So there was this breakdown in terms of his vision. I was like, I can't fulfill on that vision. So there is no vision. And to me, I'm in a dead end job here because you're not leaving and I'm not learning what I need to know to run this business. And you're not actually interested in not working. So I didn't really get kind of where we were going with the whole thing. So it was a little frustrating.
And how did you end up developing, you know, you have a successful firm today. Yeah. You're an independent woman, an independent leader. How did you get from, you know, job number C, letter C, 1, 2, 3, the first two, right, to the third opportunity, to where you are today, 20 years plus years in women in finance?
So it took a number of leaps, and it took, leaving the nest, as it were. It just so happened that around the time of the last financial crisis, there was a quote from Warren Buffett. He says, "It's only when the tide goes out that you find out who's swimming with no shorts." And I love that. Warren Buffett's a genius.
There's a reason he's a genius.
Yeah. And it turns out I was swimming with no shorts. So I literally am a certified financial planner. I think I was getting my MBA at that time, or maybe I was soon to start my MBA program. And, you know, so point being, I have analytical skills. I have math skills. I certainly have arithmetic skills. And yet I couldn't really internalize the lesson that you can't carry credit card balances. You actually have to be able to pay those balances off. And so I had maxed out credit cards. I found myself in a place where I had one of those mortgages that went up every month. It was called a pick-a-pay, or a negatively amortized loan. So the coupon would come and it would say, you can pay the full mortgage payment, or you can pay half that, or you can pay half that. And guess which one I paid? The teeny one.
Smallest possible, thank you, of course.
Yeah, it was like tomorrow wasn't coming in my world. And then the financial crisis happened, and I literally found myself the tide was out with no shorts, not literally, but figuratively. And I ended up losing a condo. I had to walk away from that credit card debt for a while until I had enough income to negotiate it down. Basically, I basically hit financial rock bottom, and it was very painful. It was excruciatingly embarrassing. I felt like a drag on society. I thought I'm the worst kind of human being. How could this happen? My parents scrimped and saved, sent me to Santa Clara University. Maybe you haven't heard of Santa Clara, but it's a private school. They paid for it. I got out with no debt, and this is how you thank them, Hilary, right? And so I said to myself, okay, so it's really clear if I keep doing these behaviors, my life is going to continue to contain financial emergencies. I'm going to have lack of resources, lack of freedom, lack of dignity, lack of choice. And I'm just like not willing to live like that. So I said, okay, I'm just going to figure this out, whatever this is. And so, like I said, it was very humbling. And I think humbling life experiences have the potential to really open your heart, open your soul, open you up to growth. And I became an expert on money psychology, behavioral finance. I decided I was going to figure out what drives us when it comes to money. And it turns out, when I was little, my mom was a very good saver. She worked in the clinical laboratory at the hospital. She had an average income and she was a good saver. So she just we had no budget for some things. And I couldn't get the things that I wanted. Specifically, I'm in high school. I'm the starting center on the high school basketball team. All my teammates have Nike high tops. Okay. I want Nike high tops, but we shop at Payless Shoe Source. So I wore Pro Wings. Remember Payless Shoe Source?
Sure. I remember Payless.
So I
wanted for me for years.
Yeah. So, and I'm mortified about these, they're Pro Wings. I call them, they're not Nikes, they're Likes. So
Likes,
I was embarrassed.
I like that. Likes. Gotta get me some Likes.
So I decided there's never enough money. And I lived in this world of scarcity about money. And it's super strange to think about it. But when you live in a world called there's never enough money, when money comes into your account, you have to spend it. That's why they say money burns a hole in my pocket. Well, if that's true for you, it's because you're about to be wrong that there's never enough money. Here I've got bank account balances and I'm like, you would have loved to hang out with me because I would pay for vacations. I would take people out to dinner. I would pay for cocktails at the bar because I thought that made me look successful. I thought it would make me likable. I wanted people to think I was already financially successful. And so I would empty my bank accounts paying for things I couldn't and shouldn't have been affording. So it took a while.
It's also interesting to look at, and I've talked about this for a long time, is the lessons our parents teach us about money that they had no intention of teaching us or no knowledge that they were teaching us.
Yeah, my mom is very good with money. She had no intention to teach me that there's never enough money. In fact, what she said about money is, I always have money for the important things. And that was true. I went to summer camp. I went to private university. There's nothing I needed that I did without, right? And I don't think she had a conscious methodology of teaching me about money wisdom, but certainly my reality about money wasn't her reality. In fact, I thought she was broke. I thought we were broke. I thought we were poor. And she was just a good saver. Right?
She just chose a certain way to spend her money that ethically worked for her. Yeah. And as a child, you had a different point of view or interpretation of what you learned from how your mom chose, the decisions your mom made. Not good or bad decisions, just decisions.
Yeah, the viewpoint of a child. It is so interesting how much the things we say to ourselves as children impact our growing up and our lives and our success until it's brought from the background into the foreground. You can examine it. It's like, oh, that's a strongly held belief. I made that up when I was 7. Maybe we should look at it again.
Right. So you've been in finance for 20 some odd years. You went through after the 2008, 2009 financial setback.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. I got lost in my own story.
No worries. So, I have a job here to do, so it's a good thing I do
it. So at the same time, I disassembled my entire financial life, started going to events and conferences and listening to teachers and experts about money psychology. And I said to myself, I got to integrate this into my practice. And, I said to you earlier that I was very insecure about who would want to work with me. And all of a sudden one day I had this thought, and it was like, people say the thoughts come to you in the shower. I don't remember if I was in the shower, but the thought said, Hilary, when you call the doctor, you always say, I would like to see a female doctor. You always ask. for a woman, right? And that's your personal preference. You prefer to be in the room alone with a female. And I said, I bet there are women out there who are looking to be alone in the room with a female financial advisor who really only want to be served by women working for women. And it was almost like that thought altered my life. And so I just doubled down on the you could say the niche of working with women.
Right. And you don't even realize it's a niche, you didn't necessarily go for it because it was a niche market or this is what, it was just like, oh, wait a second, I do this. Maybe other women might feel this way. Why don't we do this?
Yes, exactly. And I knew that there had to be women out there. I mean, if you listen to women talk about their experience in a traditional financial advisor's office, it's often being condescended to, not listened to, being talked down to. It's a very dissatisfying experience. So I just created exactly the opposite of that, right? If you come into my office, you feel like you're in a nice living room. We never have CNN or Money Ticker on the screen.
Really? You mean you can't watch that 24/7 until it makes you crazy?
So, and it really started working. It was almost like I had the thought, I changed a few of the things I was saying, and my business tripled inside the business where I was working for my dad within about 2 months. It was like the universe was saying to me, this is it, right? That you found the thing. And so I went for it. And eventually, to make a long story short, I basically said to my parents, I'm going to go build this brand that is by women for women. And I need to leave the family business in order to do that. And so I did that with their blessing. I'm still in a position where if we wanted to do a business continuation plan, like I could still buy their practice. Most of their clients still know me. You know what I mean? It's still possible for me to do
and
for my dad what he wanted. And it would be possible
at the right time for you and for him, as opposed to a hypothetical theory and a one day maybe.
I don't believe in one day maybe anymore. Yes, exactly. And it was massively scary in the beginning. Every single one of the clients I had been working with directly came with me when I left. So that was, I felt very emboldened by that. And I've just learned a ton since then. I hire a ton of coaches and I really work on it's essentially sales skill, but it's consultative sales skill, right? So my ability to be with people and be with their communications and to be persuasive in any environment and to understand, I know how I'm going to lead the conversation. I used to be petrified to be alone in the room with an investor, a potential investor. I was afraid that they would say something about the stock market. I didn't know how to answer. And at this point, I don't even have that thought anymore because I know exactly what my answers are. So it's some practice, it's some experience, it's some wisdom, you know what I mean? But there was definitely there was a lot of time spent in my home office memorizing scripts because I needed to know what I was going to say.
And it's interesting because I would probably challenge the difference of you needed to know what you were going to say versus you needed to be confident in what came out of your mouth, that it was believable by you as well as anybody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to work out your ability to acknowledge people, their concerns, their requests, their thoughts, and also still move the conversation in such a way that there's going to be a mutually beneficial outcome at the end of the day. So at this point, I'm highly confident in my ability to do that. And so I've got 3.5 full-time. I've got 3 full-time employees and a part-time and several contractors that work for me. And I've been able to create a company dynamic that I'm really proud of. I love our company culture. It's not Southwest Airlines, but
it's fly with Hilary.
Yeah. But in our company mission statement, or not the mission statement, it's a blueprint document. It says we can say we as a team have each other's backs and we can say that we love our lives. And that was so meaningful for me to put in the company document. It's like, it is part of my promise to you as an employer and our promise to each other as a team that we can say we love our lives. Now, ultimately, you're responsible for your own happiness. But for example, I give them Fridays off, not all of them, but if you tell me you want every other Friday off, I'm going to work it out. And I have in many cases, right? Because that's what they value. So I've been able to interact, to engage with my heart and my brain, which is very meaningful.
So share, the team you've built, is it all women? Do you have a co-ed team? What is your view as far as women in finance overall?
Yeah. So currently I just happen to have a team that's all female. I have a full-time financial advisor, a part-time financial advisor, a full-time executive assistant, and I have a copywriter. My podcast production team is all men. Uh, but as far as who interacts with my clients, it's all women right now. And I don't think I have a philosophy on that. It is, of course, against the law to discriminate against people based on their gender. So we absolutely consider all male applicants for positions. But it was very important for me to have it be female centric. And I think that that's part of my branding, is being very different than Wall Street. I need to feel very different than walking into a Wells Fargo or a Solomon Smith Barney office, right? Because otherwise I don't have a differentiation. So I'm at the point where I feel like we've done that pretty effectively. And it's fun.
You know, I think it's fabulous. And I'll always also say we need the guys. We need the guys in the room because we want a differentiation of thoughts and ideas coming from various perspectives that makes us an educated society overall.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's not about rejecting men. I love my husband and he's an old white man, and
you must know mine.
It is not about that. It's just like Wall Street and finance and investing and financial planning for so long have been the Harvard Boys Club. And so it's time for us to have our own thing, right? And so it's just about when you get together in some circles, like you go onto Facebook. I don't know about you, but my experience on Facebook is all about Facebook groups right now. I'm in these niche conversations, 5 or 6 different groups. And the quality, the tone of the conversation in each group is massively different based on who's in there, why we're in there together, what we're up to doing, right? It's a very different conversation. And it's the same. It's just a very different conversation when you have 10 women in a room than when you have 5 couples.
Love that. How have you balanced? I know your mom, you and your husband are now in this whole pandemic. We're all working from home. Hail, hail, the gang's all here, as we say. Let's talk some nuts and bolts of how.
Is that hail, hail, or hell, hell?
Depends who you ask. Actually, it depends what moment you ask it.
Yeah. Let's see. Well, I'm blessed. One of the advantages of starting late, so I didn't have a baby until I was 39 years old. My husband is 12 years older than me. So while we don't have youth, we don't have that traditional youth or the youth that some parents have kids in their early 20s, but we do have resources. Obviously, as a wealth coach, I'd better be able to pay for some things. So we have a full-time nanny. And so we just got lucky that we were quarantined with her because her boyfriend's nursing program became 100% virtual around the time of the quarantine. So we were able to keep her quarantined with us. So she doesn't live here. She lives across town, but she's not seeing anyone else. So blessing of all blessings. And I almost feel guilty when I talk about this because I know parents of young kids right now who are trying to work full-time and homeschool. I can't even imagine. So I've had to up the amount of housekeeping that I do, the cleaning. Obviously, it's not pleasant to be in the house if it's a mess and I can't really focus. So I've spent probably, a couple of hours additional cleaning every day, but, we just have agreements about silent time. So there's times we're in the house and it's like, okay, we're all here, but we can't just interrupt each other because task switching is massively psychologically expensive. So we give each other that. It's like pretend I'm not here kind of a thing. What's at me? If you have a question, what's at me? That and we just have a really effective task management system, project management internally. We already had that before this thing started.
So that must have been hugely helpful.
Yeah. We have dashboards and project management and, we all talk about how we organize our time. And so, yeah, it's been really helpful. So I'm lucky, but I also earned the luck. So it's not 100% luck. I didn't win the lottery, but
yeah,
I do earn enough money to pay a nanny.
Let's define lucky. Lucky is winning the lottery and then doing really good with the results of that. versus just haphazardly spending it. And then there's creating great opportunity that looks like luck. And creating great things in place that appear to be lucky, yet it's about daily attendance to it.
It is. And I would say I also have a partner. My husband is extremely effective at self-management, self-organization. So we just surround ourselves with it. So it's a lifestyle. Organize hard, play hard.
Any tips that you would like to share with the women who are tuning into the financial series, Women in Finance, Past, Present, and Future? Women who are your colleagues who've been here for a long time with us, versus women who are thinking about this and stepping in.
I would say there's a massive amount of opportunity in financial services that once you have the skill set under your belt, in my particular role, there's a number of areas that I have expertise in. Those are technical. But once I've mastered that, my job is really about taking care of people. It's really about being insightful, being in communication with people, understanding what they need. It's very fulfilling from an emotional perspective. I said to my team right now, we're responsible for getting 140 families through this pandemic and recession and stock market downturn. It's our leadership that's keeping their behavior in line. We're the ones saying do X, Y, and Z, and we say the result will be positive at the end of the day. And we know because we have wisdom that that's the truth. But it's also very, oh gosh, what does it, like, I already used the word fulfilling, but it's almost like when you have to take care of something that means that much, you also do the things that you need to do to take care of yourself. I'm very committed to physical fitness. I work out 5-6 days a week. I manage my diet. I meditate. I try my best to get a good night's sleep, but I need those things as a foundation because if my cup isn't full, I can't take care of who I said I would take care of. So I would say, I think that financial services has been very good to me, and there's a lot of money to be made, and there's a lot of female leadership that we need. So my industry is still 82% male. And, I think that women have a lot to say. Women have a lot of natural skill set that can make a difference in what I do. And I think that how do I say this? The last bastions of feminism are coming to fruition. It's like all these movements are happening. The world can be your oyster, but it still is a world where if you want something, you have to take it. No one's going to give it to you. You have to raise your own hand. Elect yourself.
I love that. Listeners, if you want to know more about Hilary, be in touch with Hilary. Learn more about Hilary's 7 Steps to Wealth framework that she teaches for all women to be empowered about their wealth, their health, and their financial wellness. You definitely want to be reaching out and checking Hilary's brilliance and her wisdom. Hilary, what's some of the best ways that our listeners can be in touch with you?
Well, if you're right there in your podcast player now and you have room in your lineup, I would love it if you would check out Profit Boss Radio. That's where I talk about technical ways to grow your wealth, but also money psychology tips, behavioral best practices. I interview people who have had massive financial turnarounds. So it's pretty cool stuff. Love to have you over there. And everything I do can be found at hilaryhendershott.com. That's Hilary with 1 L and Hendershott with 2 T's.
Awesome. And everything's in the show notes below. So remember to check those out. While you're down there and checking out our show notes, please click the link to subscribe. We come into your inbox every week with great content, wonderful people who share their knowledge and their breadth of brilliance. While you're there, please leave a little note of your biggest takeaways from today's call. We're always checking in, myself and my team. What is it that you're taking away from these calls? What else do you want to know so we can be of service to you? Thank you for joining me here today at Her Success Story.
Don't need your approval anymore, 'cause I've got mine.